Welcome everyone to another one of our AIM data webinars. We've been doing these since the pandemic hit in March of 2020, and it's been such a great time. We've had covered so many great topics, and this one is just another one of those. What we're going to talk about today is the same thing, but in a couple different ways. We're going to talk about there's a class in road racing called Spec MX-5, and in that class we have been taking a little bit of a different approach with the data, since they're all on AIM devices and they're all using the same exact ECU and then a very spec class. We're able to use the data to do at least the initial pieces of technical compliance here from AIM. So what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about what we're doing, a little bit more detail than what we've maybe shared in the past, show some live data, show a few screen captures, and and then we're going to jump out and take some of those exact same concepts for those of you that aren't in the class, or those of you that are in the class and want to be able to do some parts of this and see, um, be able to start analyzing your own data in this kind of cool way that we figured out how to do this. We're going to give you some tools to do that. So that'll be about the last little bit of the webinar. So keep that in mind, and we're going to again share with you the math channels to do that, and the user profile to set it up just like the screen that you'll be looking at from me. So with that, I'd like to get started and have Josh Smith from Mazda join us. Josh is going to join us and chat a little bit about the your microphone's still off, Josh. We're going to talk about uh, the class, a little bit about what Mazda does. Josh is a big part of this, a big part about this class and the support of it with all of his cohorts at Mazda, obviously. And just wanted to bring Josh in. Thank you, Josh, for coming again today. I appreciate it.
Not a problem, Roger. Thanks for having us again.
Absolutely. This is we've been working, AIM and Mazda has been working together for years. And then me personally, this has been a topic that I've wanted to kind of cover and work on in the background. And I have been with many different groups in the past, been reading data and just on track performance and understanding things. Of course, this is taking it to a new level. But I'd love to just have you chat a little bit about Mazda's background in amateur racing and the different classes that your guys work with a lot on that amateur side. Obviously, Spec Miata being a big one that everybody knows about, but this class being taking that next generation of Mazda cars, and what was the idea of bringing that together, and where do you expect it to go into the future?
Well, we could be here all night if we talked about all of our ties into amateur racing, but Spec MX-5 came about mostly because we saw a gap between Spec Miata and MX-5 Cup. We also saw a gap where the old Playboy Cup cars, really kind of went into mothballs after the Pro Series moved from that generation of car, and then the Global Cup car got built, and it kind of forgot about the NC for a little bit. It played in a Pirelli World Challenge at the time and a few other series at the time, and then sort of trickled into like the Touring 4 category and maybe a little bit of Super Touring, and at a regional level some ITS stuff. So it was looking to fill a void that was needed, which was really a new generation of the MX-5 at an amateur level, and a spec series that would really carry this department 10 plus years into the future for amateur road racing. The car had, like I mentioned earlier, the car had left pro racing, like typically every car does once it's no longer new. It's pro racing is the new atmosphere for rolling out new product, and then once that's done, it's finding a home for it afterwards. So as far as tie-in for the rest of the department, it's the same thing that we've done for anybody racing a Mazda. Our support here is unwavering. It doesn't matter if you're in an RX-3 or if you're in a new MX-5 Cup car. We have the same level of support for all of our customers.
Always been that way, and always been very appreciated. My family benefited from that a lot, just the knowledge and being there. What with this class specifically, though, what since that's what we're going to talk about today, what Where do you see it going? Do you the growth has been spectacular, and I don't I'm just watching it from the outside as much as a lot of folks. But where do you see this thing growing to? It's now a class at the a national class with SCCA, and will have its own group there at the own race at the runoffs this year. It just is building and building. What are you expecting in the future?
Man, I can already tell you it's exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
So I would think my expectations would be flawed at this point. But the growth this year has been amazing. We're truly amped about it. We're also scared at the same time. So we're doing our best to manage inventories for parts and make sure that we're able to keep up with this level of growth. But internally, when we started this, if we thought, kind of far out expectations, if it was half the size of Spec Miata in 5 to 10 years, we considered that an absolute success. We're somewhere in the 170 car kits sold currently. For example, the MX-5 Cup car, since from 16 to now, is roughly 300 cars built to date. Not all of them current state-of cars, but just over the years since 16 to now. So we're steady working along, and this really comes to the testament of the teams and the shops that are really helping this, because they're the ones that ultimately have to build the cars. We can supply all the parts, but we're not building cars in this series, or in this sense for an amateur, and it just doesn't work. We couldn't possibly supply enough cars in a calendar year for something like that to work. So success, I'd say we're already on that road to success. It's just the take rate and people continuing to build cars. And some of these parts are also used in club spec, which is kind of could potentially be a feeder into this, but same parts. So it makes it an easy transition.
And finally, to kind of close out your part here, the data, using it for technical compliance, you've been a supporter of that from the word go. I think once it was just shown to you what could be done, and you immediately seen what the benefit could be. What is your thought about what is happening there, and what's the feedback you're getting from the Mazda side?
Really, it's been positive feedback. It's turned. There was some skepticism at first, certainly, but now it's turned into, not only is it helpful for the teams to be able to see it, or us to be able to point out, as you do pretty much every weekend for us, point out, hey, you might want to have a team look at this. Something's going south, whether it's fuel pressure or oil pressure or mass airflow reading, really out of spec from what we would normalize. I think it's a great tool. We see it at the pro levels. We see it at F1. They make all the data completely transparent, and customers at that level can even pay to see it, like with an F1, I think it's a sky pass or something. I think it makes it difficult to hide, is what it does, and it tries to bring the transparency out. We've used driver data in endurance racing to get all your teammates up to speed, and this is sort of the same thought process. We're getting everybody up to speed very quickly with showing class compliance through data.
And the cars truly are spec, right? And everything about them is spec, and so everything should be, fairly close on all the numbers. And why not be able to share as much of that as possible with the competitor, so they understand what's going on. And we're going to talk a little bit about what has been shared already, and what possibly can be shared in the future. So uh, we're growing and learning. As you mentioned, the car count is growing like crazy, which means the workload on this side of that is growing like crazy. So we're trying to figure out ways to make this happen for the number of cars that come in, right? But I think there's more to come, and we're going to show a little bit of that today. So uh,
Absolutely. And you couldn't ask for a better way to collect the data. Same session, same conditions for everybody, and data submitted within X number of time frame after the races. So you couldn't ask for an even playing field to at least be able to evaluate this. And
and
that's
this
really what we're looking for.
and this is, racers are a thinking bunch, right? They're always working, and to try to get around as much as they can, and get that unfair advantage as best they can. So there's always the worry with electronics that things can be done when you check it on a chassis dyno or somewhere else. That's what was so important to us, as we kind of close up your piece here, to do this testing on track in the race, right? And they need to show what they're going to show if they're going to do something, and what better time to grab that data than while they're out there running. So
It really eliminates some of the anomalies that are possible, is what it comes down to, because we don't race dynos. So it's tough to compare dyno numbers across the country from different brands and different times at different correction factors. So this is just another way to look at it. So you're absolutely right.
And we're going to continue to get better at it and keep trying new things. You're going to see some of the stuff we're trying and some of the stuff we haven't shown yet. We're going to show a little bit of what I've been doing in the background and hasn't been released yet. So Josh is going to go back and watch a little bit. He's going to open up his question and answer box. Justin, if you could turn your camera on. There is a question and answer opportunity for everybody that's watching. If you want to add a question here, we're going to have open it up and answer a question or two at the end with both Josh and Justin. And if you want to have your questions answered at that point, make sure you throw them into there. If we don't get to them, they will be emailed, and Justin or Josh will, or myself, will reply with emails as well. So put your questions into the question and answer box, and we will try to get to those. Justin, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Justin is the Spec MX-5 series manager. Those of you that are in the series know Justin very, very well. He is at virtually every, certainly all the bigger races, and even some of the other ones as well. So Justin, thanks for coming. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I hope that if we're not part of the last one, I hope you learn a lot tonight from Roger and understand why I am begging you and telling you need to send your data within 30 minutes because it's super important. So anyway.
And he might be getting notes from me telling him he may be getting hit in the side of his pocket from me as well. So we do appreciate everybody's efforts. The only thing I'd like to chat with you just a little bit about, Justin, as we get going. You know, the series has been building. I'm going to bring up a slide here for everybody to see and for you to take a look at as well. The series, the class has just been growing, right? And we'll leave this up and everybody can kind of take a look at it. But my question to you is, the class is growing. This data has been a piece of it since almost the very beginning. First at just the nationals, and then we've been starting adding more and more sessions. And this year, all of the Hoosier Super Tours plus some other events. You're there every day with the folks that are out there racing it. What is the feeling, and what's the feedback from them as they're getting it, and how has it grown as time has gone on?
Well, I guess the feedback from myself, first of all, and Mazda and Josh and everybody else who's involved, and Sean and everybody, like, we're really proud of seeing the growth, and we're shocked. And I'll be very candid, very honest. We were not expecting this kind of growth. This year, we're seeing 40 cars at the sprints, actually 41 as of today. Last year at the Cat Nats at Road America, we had 20, and that was like the record for SMX. We're doubling that this year. Yes, it's the sprints. Yes, we're the new national class, but nobody could have told us or told the SCCA like this is what you should expect. We are the third highest subscribed class at the Hoosier Super Tour this year. Our first year as national class. We're just super proud, to be honest. I love being part of the class, part of SMX. Everybody else is. You can see how close it is as well. The slide can speak for itself, I guess. I can go on and on and on and on about this. Like, I'm trying to promote the class, promote a series or Spec MX-5, but anyway, yeah.
It's growing.
Awesome.
It's growing no matter what at this point, right? I think the snowball is growing in size as it's growing. I mean, look at the average cars per race. Just it started off and then has just been growing and growing. And like you say, and Josh mentioned a minute ago, you guys, he may even be a little bit concerned or a little scared at times, right? And I know I feel that same thing. 41 cars. I think the previous event was 33, if I remember right? And
so
size.
At Red Atlanta, we had 33 this year. At NOLA, we had 24. Nobody expected that. At Sebring, we had 23. Like, all of those races were record-breaking races for the year. So, and even like the finish this year at Sebring with Rocco Pasquarella and Justin Adaconis, who's currently leading the championship, it was 0.007 seconds.
Amazing.
And the record was twice at Sonoma's 0.006. So like, we're very spec. The numbers show that. Like, this year we've had 18 races and we've had 13 different winners. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
like
As you say, it's on the page here, and everybody that's racing in the series really understands it. And
yeah,
the bottom one is one that we as racers maybe the younger ones do as much, but the upper ones are always interesting to me. But the social growth, I know you work hard at that.
yeah,
How is that growing, and how is that helping of the racers
yeah.
in getting what they need?
So in the current 2020, 2024, that's the year that we're in, it's social media is extremely important for racers, not only for their own following, but for their partners and for their sponsorship. So uh, now, which is good for us, for Spec MX-5, since we're on all the Super Tour races as a national championship eligible class, all of the races are live streamed. So they're able, the kids or the adults or whoever is racing or trying to sell sponsorship, and club racing is super difficult. But selling it as a live stream, saying like you can have your brand on my car or our car, however you want to present it, it's it's a game changer. And for our Instagram account only, we've gained this year over 1,000 followers, and we had 2,000 at the start of the year, so that's a massive gain already, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And we had a big reel posted this morning when I'm in Florida on vacation, so it's really really cool.
And the live feed that it goes out from SCCA
Yeah,
on
it's
YouTube has been a joy for me, just to be able to watch the
totally.
class number one, and knowing that I'm going to soon get data. It's always nice to be able to see a little bit of it. How is that turning out a benefit is for the class?
No, it's been awesome. Like the promotional side of that's awesome. For you, it's awesome to be able to actually see what's happening, because you're seeing when I send you the data after the qualifying or both races, you're seeing the data, but then you can go back and I guess go to the live stream and replay it and see actually what happened at track at that time when you're seeing something weird happening in the data, I guess too, you
Yep,
know?
yep.
So no, it's incredible.
You,
And for club racing, like you don't really see this in club racing. And this is not a Spec MX-5 specific thing, but it's an SCCA thing they're
yeah.
doing with the Super Tours. It's really, really awesome.
No, they're doing a
So
fantastic job,
100%.
and we're
Yeah.
trying to use technology in any ways that you can. Just as you mentioned, there's times
Yeah.
where
And
I will jump back and roll
totally.
the video back and say, oh, okay, what was happening right there?
Yeah. But,
So,
and also just to interject really quick. So Greg Ginsburg, who's one of the Super Tour announcers, is on this call right
uh,
now. I saw him type in the chat saying hello. So hi
uh,
Greg, how you doing? Brian Belansky is also, he's doing a chat tonight, a separate one, but he said he's going to join in and rewatch the thing. So,
yeah,
hey,
perfect.
Brian, tomorrow, how you doing? So yeah, thanks
Well,
for
I
your
sure
commentary
appreciate
this year.
their
Yeah,
enthusiasm, their knowledge, and their
totally.
professionalism with everything they do. Thank you guys for doing what you do, just for racing in general, and of course this class. So
And since we're on that
perfect.
subject, Roger, just to interject again, I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody else to you for doing all of your crazy analysis after the qualifying in the races, and our racers appreciate it. I know you're going to go into slides later tonight and showing how you're going to help with the health of the car, health of the driver, that kind of thing. And there's so much more than just the tech compliance side of the data. And we appreciate you, Roger.
Oh,
Basically,
you're very
Roger
welcome.
sends me emails at 4 o'clock in the morning, along with Mazda and Josh, and everybody else, saying, "Oh my God, guys, check out this crowd, how close this was to this turn or whatever it was." And I'm like, "Oh my God, Roger, go to sleep." But he doesn't sleep. He loves the data. So anyway,
Maybe I'm just up early. No,
oh maybe
I'm
yeah,
afraid it's the other way. I'm afraid it's the other way. Uh,
yeah,
thanks Justin for everything that you do, and the
yeah,
hard work you put in, and the racers.
yeah,
I hope we give you a little bit more of a taste tonight with what is going on. It'll be fun. Again, if you have questions, throw those up into there. Justin's going to jump out of this, and then we'll bring both Justin and Josh back at the end. We'll have a little bit of a closing and talk about some of the different things there. So perfect. And then
there
I
you go.
will reshare this screen and jump into a couple of things just uh, about some of the stuff that we're doing. And by the way, we're gonna have a webinar later in the year. I don't know. We haven't set the exact time yet with all the races that are setting that are coming around. But probably before the runoffs, we will have a Spec MX-5 specific, even more technical details of some of the stuff we're going to show here today. So everybody be prepared to come and join that. I think we'll make it probably a 2-hour one with maybe some feedback back and forth a little bit more. So keep that in mind. This one will be pretty brief, but it will hopefully give you an idea. The SMX data tools. I wanted to start this one off with those of you that aren't in the class, but want to see um, this information. The at the end of this, we're gonna go into some data on a non-SMX car and show you some of the same exact tools that we're using here, maybe some basic value, basic pieces of them. There's the math channels here that we're gonna share with you. There's a link here that'll be in the chat box available for you to download these math channels, and a user profile that's gonna look exactly, it's the user profile that I've set up that you're gonna see tonight. If you want to apply this towards your own data, everything I've built is on the AIM GPS channel, so it can be used with anybody's data files that has a GPS sensor. So keep that in mind, and I'm gonna show you some pretty cool stuff that's pretty close to what we're doing in an SMX, and allow you to do that. It's a great tool for teammates, and you make a change in your car and look at acceleration rates and some other stuff. Look forward to that the last 10 minutes or so of this webinar. SMX compliance data. There are some really important things that most of you are doing correctly. There's a couple things here that we might want to work on, where we'll talk about those more in the longer webinar. But just for those of you that may not understand fully what we do, these cars, of course, have an ECU on board, and all the cars need to run the same one, and they need to run the same ECU protocol. That really has not been much of a problem lately. There is a new one coming out. It's in testing right now. It'll be coming out soon. When that time comes, you will get information. There will be a full update and directions that'll be provided to you, how to change it. I know a lot of you it's pretty easy to change. I mean, it's probably a 5-minute task if you know the steps, but it's a little bit concerning if you don't, right? So we'll give you good directions on how to do that. This update will be mandatory. That we're adding some channels in to help us with the technical compliance checks. And there's also 2 channels that are being mandatory sensors that are on the cars, fuel pressure and oil pressure. Again, this is one of those things that we had a little bit of issues early on, but it's pretty much resolved itself. The fuel pressure and oil pressure channels, the Race Studio software is very, very literal, and it capitalized letters, no shortcuts, no fuel press, no lowercase f fuel pressure. All of that creates a bunch of extra work on my part of having to rename all of these channels from 40 different data files coming in. So anything you can do to make sure that these are named exactly in this way is very, very helpful for me, and using the correct protocol is very, very important. Getting these things all on that same level playing field is what makes this process work. So I appreciate everybody that's doing all of that correctly. One that we haven't pushed very much, again, something that needs to be as standardized as possible to make our processes work, and something that we have not pushed this very hard, and there's a lot of different stuff comes in, so I'm just going to show it here, and hopefully you guys can see it and start to do what I'm having to change on everybody's files every time nearly, is when this box opens up, when you download your data, what really needs to be plugged into these boxes is pretty straightforward and simple. If you could put the name of the driver just as it is on the entry list, that just makes it easy for me, because I'm working off an entry list and I'm working on results and trying to put everything together. Put the driver's name as it is on the entry list would be very, very helpful. Some people are, it's rental car number 68, or whatever it happens to be, right? Or sometimes there's shortcut names or even pet names that people are putting in here. All funny, and I enjoy it as much as you do, but it'd be helpful if you put the driver's name, the race vehicle number. I know those numbers are changing on you occasionally, and it's kind of a pain. If you're number 13 all the time, and then you had to make it 113 for this event because somebody already had the 13, just use the number that's on the entry list. Will make this very much easier for me, because I need to match up this data with the actual results. And then the big one that is the one that's the hardest for me to take the time to change because of the way Race Studio 3 works. It puts together everything with championships, and what we have settled on is to try to have everybody's Spec space MX-5. If you could plug that in as your championship when you download the data, will become very much easier on my end, and we're getting more and more cars, and changing all of these takes a ton of time for me. So if you could do these three the very first time you download for qualifying one, the very first time, they will be held for the rest of the weekend. So you only really have to do it once, and then you can change it back to your normal club racing stuff, or whatever your practice sessions, and setting it differently if you wish. But for this, I would love it if you guys can all handle that. Session type, there's a default channels, there's default sessions in there that I've been using, just qualifying one, qualifying two, if needed. Sometimes you guys only qualify one, and then first race, second race. And this one here should always be speed, but I've not had any of those come to me that anybody's changed that, so that's fine. If you're not seeing those channels, when you pull down this list, there is a when you download your data, when you get ready to download your data and you click on it, you're going to see this. Normally it comes with this tab open. There's another tab there called Download Session Types. If you go to that tab, you can just check the ones that you want to show up in this pull down, right? So if I go back up, this pull down here may be a huge long list, and it may be very inconvenient for you. If you go to this tab and just check the testing for ahead of the official events, and then first race, second race, and qualifying one, qualifying two, if you check those, then that will all be that shows up. That'll be the only thing that shows up in this session type list. So keep that in mind, and it'd be very helpful to me if you would start to try to fill that in as best you can. I would appreciate it. One of the things that, as we get data, yes, there's technical compliance stuff. I threw this in here before we go look at some live data, but kind of out of place. But I just wanted to talk about some of the stuff that we're doing to add value to you as racers. And after the races, I plug all this information into some documents that allows me to then graph this up, where we take the top 10 cars. I'm just showing two here, but just to give you an idea of what's out there. And then we put those top 10 cars against the median value for the class for every car that ran in that session. Might be 33 cars, might be 21, might be only 10, right? Depending on the number of entries. But we put all of those in there and then set a 0 at the median value, and then subtract or add in the difference for the top 10 cars. And then they're anonymized, so you couldn't tell who is who because of taking the times away, obviously going against the median. And then but it shows you that the fastest car was only 0.016 faster in 60 to 73 in the third gear run, and the slowest was about 0.6 as well, right? So 0.06, not 6/10s, but 600ths. So you get an idea of how the top 10 cars were in the class versus the median. And in this case, boy, the ones that are slower in the top 10 versus the ones that are faster in the top 10 is pretty darn even, and it's not very much difference. So just an interesting thing there. We also do technical items. This is the average manifold air MAF, or manifold airflow, the mass airflow, I'm sorry, the at full throttle. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how I get to that data here in just a moment. But again, the median value, and then the cars that are above or below it. When we get way high at the high end, we begin to get nervous. But we do see some cars that have substantially lower, and we try to get that information out to cars if they're really low. So this one here, one of the top 10 was an underperforming mass airflow number from the data, right? So we'll show you a little bit more about that here in just a moment. But we're making these available for Justin. He's adding those into the email that goes out on Monday morning for everybody to take a quick look at kind of how that weekend's information was found and shared. One thing that I have made available once to every, I've sent it to Justin for every car at one event on the west coast of the western half of the states, and one time on the east side. And it's this piece of information. We're not going to do that every time because it does take a good chunk of time. But if anybody in the paddock that has data that was submitted would like this graph, one of these two graphs, we'll go over them in just a quick second. All you have to do is ask Justin. He'll drop me a note. I will put together something like this and then send it back. And what it is is there's a technical piece for the technical channels, right? The stuff that comes from the ECU and temperatures and pressures and different things. And what I've done is I've taken the entire class and I've got the median value for the entire class of the math values, right? And here's what the number is, and here's what it is for on this particular one race for Johnny Davies. Johnny was nice enough to give me the okay to use his data today as an example. So that's why you're seeing this. But you would get this. It would be you or team cars. If Justin wants me to give, if you have 3 team cars, you want them all together, no problem for me. But you'll get the averages from the median for the class, and then you'll get your car. And what you can do is then look at this and say, you know, my voltage is good. My maximum MAF is right there about even with what the rest of the cars are. My fuel pressure is close. You can judge yourself against the average of the class. And these are available if you ask for those. Don't want everybody to do it every time, or else but if there's something that you have a concern about from looking at your data and you'd like to know how it compares to the class, let me know. The other one is a performance side. We have, of course, the driver, and then we have the maximum speed the car hit in that entire session. I'll briefly show you how I get to that here in just a moment. The maximum, and then the median of the maximum speeds for all of the cars for the entire class. And then I take the best laps in the performance, what I call the data laps. It's basically 1/3 of the laps you ran, and then I average those together. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And then you see what you end up seeing is then I average those maximum speeds for those 6 best laps you did. In this case at Portland, it was 6. Sometimes a real long track, it might be 4, it might be 8 for a short track, but it's about 1/3 of the laps you ran. And then average them. His car is almost exactly what the median was for the class. There is the acceleration rate in 3rd gear. Again, his 6 best times of accelerating averaged together for a 218. The class average was 223. The class median was 223. That you look at the number and you go, well, there's a difference there, but in reality, you know, we're talking a half a tenth, right? And then in 4th gear, 82 to 102 miles per hour, again in that 7 thousandths range of time. So if you want to see how your car is performing against the median of the class, let me know. If you think it's down, you think it's up. You don't have to tell me what you're thinking, but let me know, and we can get you this information after the race. It's just part of what we want to do to make the pain of you submitting this data and is adding another task to your jobs a little bit of value for you. So keep that in mind. What we're going to do there is, I have not been keeping up on the chat too much. I got to focus on what I'm doing here a little bit, but we'll get back to some of that. I see some things bouncing up there occasionally. I'm going to jump out now, and we're going to jump into some live data and show you the basic steps I go through in the first few minutes to get to the kind of data that what we're eventually putting into the reports. So let me bring up Race Studio. This is Portland Race 2 from this year. Again, Johnny Davies was nice enough to volunteer and say that I could use his data. And I could have done some screen captures and I could have anonymized some stuff, but this really is a better way of showing you exactly what's going on. So I get the data, I bring it in. I've got some stored math channels that we're applying, and I've got a bunch of stored user profiles. We're going to briefly go through them. And but this is the one that I look at while you guys are still sitting in tech. Still, you're drinking water, you're still wiping sweat off. I look through these as fast as I can, bring 1 up at a time, if not 5 up at a time, depending on how the data gets to me. But I'll just kind of start here on, we'll go to the Lambda one first. I'm a data guy, so speed is almost always there first. Throttle position, you're going to see that a lot on all these slides. The meat of this one is the Lambda values. And what I've got is I've got 2 different Lambda values down in this lower box, this lower third. One of them is the raw, that's the gray one that might not be showing up as well through Zoom as we would have hoped, but you can see the raw Lambda values. The red one is nothing more than Lambda that has been filtered to only show up here as a red line at 95% throttle and above, okay, full throttle. So what I'm really looking at is this red line and understanding what the values are And then and then overlaying them with a bunch of people, I have a pretty good idea of what is the norm. And so even just visually, really quickly, I can see if one's high or one's low. If one is going real, real rich here at the end that you may not capture. One that maybe is real lean at some point. But I'm looking at this Lambda screen real quickly. Fuel pressure, same thing. The gray one here is the raw fuel pressure. And that can be fuel pressure always, by the way the pumps work, that it's always a noisy, it's pulsing of the fuel pressure. We're capturing that in the sensor, but it's always a little bit noisy. And then so the blue one here is, again, fuel pressure with a little bit of a filter, a little bit of a rolling average filter, and then only at 95%. So we're looking at this, and we know that the values are and if I come up here, you'll see, if I click on this guy here, you're going to see that there's a math channel here showing what I've done. And then often I will turn on these alarms here where if it's below the class limit or above the class limit, it will be shown as a value there that would jump out at me, right? But again, I have a pretty good idea of what we're looking at. I just look at so much of it, but that's how we're looking at that. Oil pressure, kind of the same thing. And then I always check the GPS quality. Some of the stuff we're working with is based on GPS speeds and positions. So I want to make sure that the quality is decent. If I see one here that the GPS is bad or way out of whack, I need to consider that when looking at the data. Water temp, there's a water temp and an intake air temp. I will look at this real quickly. I'll even zoom out a little bit and see the entire run, see how the water temp builds, see when you're drafting people, you can see this intake air temperature go up and down when looks like Johnny wasn't right behind somebody or was always behind somebody. I can't tell real quickly, but you can see when it goes up, it'll go up 10 or 12 degrees. So I can see exactly when somebody has drafted a little bit. So let's go back out here and just select the best lap to jump it back in. There's your MAF, your mass airflow. Again, the raw sensor versus the blue one, which has a little bit of a rolling average, and only showing at 95% of throttle or above. I want to see what is going on when you're actually accelerating, and you can see the on and off the throttles up here versus exactly how the shape. And I'll if there's something that jumps out at me, I'll throw another 2 or 3 cars right on top of it. But I've got a pretty good idea of what it should look like with what I've done. Rear wheel speeds, just looking at differentials and ABS sensors. I'll throw the fronts on there if I choose to. The again, looking at just general things that we can check technical compliance wise with our eye and of looking at the data. Gearing is another great example. Done all the math to work this backwards. These lighter colored lines are where these ought to be hitting if you are compliant with your gear ratios, both the rear diff numbers and the actual internal gear ratios. If something falls off of these lines, there's something wrong. And every once in a while we'll see something a little bit funny, and a couple of you've got notes from Justin. This is where a slipping clutch will show up. As soon as you shift, if this thing goes up for a while, some weird numbers happen until it settles down. There's a clutch slip and the RPM is going up and the wheel speeds are not. That math channel goes a little wonky, and we can capture this pretty quickly. That's why some of you get those notes. So, and then I've got one that's just got all the engine channels on top of each other where I can zoom out real quickly and just see some general trends. I've got it marked where the high values and the low values for the laps are right here. Another one to look at real quickly. So again, I do this one very quickly, look at it, and then get Justin a number that says everything looks, preliminarily looks pretty good, right? And that's what I call a mechanical one. I go through those tabs. There's some other things that I had that we're not showing quite yet, but some other stuff that we're doing as well. The to show you how this works is there is a bunch of user profiles that have been created. I've got one for acceleration, I've got one for braking, and one for cornering. I'm going to show you the acceleration because that's one that you guys get values of. So I'm just going to double click on that. It goes through, it changes all the math channels around, it changes all my tabs, and it creates a graph where I can go in and look at the things that affect third gear acceleration, right? And I've created an acceleration zone different on every track. Here at Portland, sometimes I'll do the front straightaway, sometimes I'll do the back straightaway, different areas. I move it around. In this particular example, it's the back straightaway. Those of you that run Portland, it's coming onto the back straightaway here. And you can see the speed trace going up and down. There's some math channels that I've created that I'm going to double click on Excel just to zoom in on the acceleration zone. And the math channels are built here to from 58 miles per hour on this particular day. This is what I've selected to 72 miles per hour is a little gate that I've built where this is where we're going to study the data. I have to watch fairly closely. Some of you guys shift earlier, some of you guys shift later. I need to stop this a little bit earlier than some, because some people shift a little earlier. Some people take it all the way to red line every time. I need to make sure that I capture it before any of you guys are shifting or from the bottom side. So that's why you've got this narrowness here. And I also want to do it when you're as much non-lateral G's as possible. So we're getting the true acceleration rate of the car. Some tracks that's very difficult to do. Portland being one of those, it's kind of there at the end, at the edge. But here is the gate. Here is the acceleration number in feet per second squared. That's just a G-force. Feet per second squared is the same thing. There's 32.17 feet per second squared in 1G. It gets some numbers you'll see here in a moment in the table that will help you understand why I do that, just to get a little bit more granular. And then I'm also counting up the time that it was the time that you were in this acceleration mode inside of this segment, and the distance. Some of that stuff that you may or may not have been seeing yet, but all data that we're gathering. So if I come in here and now I go to a table called a G3 acceleration report, and I broke this down. Those of you that use channel reports in Race Studio, there is the ability to not only look at the entire lap and what the time, anytime we were inside of that range of third gear acceleration, but also you can turn it on and break it down only by segment. And that's what I do. I come down here, it's a green segment called acceleration. There it is. And if I scroll that right up to the top, I'm not going to do all the work that I normally do because it just in the instance of time, but here is the time that John Davies was accelerating in third gear for every lap that the car ran up that back straightaway. And you can sort by just clicking on the header. And I click it down here where now the fastest time he did it was here at the bottom. And here are the numbers of every lap that car accelerated from 58 miles per hour to 72 in third gear on that back straightaway. And we can see the consistency of the car, right? There's one here that, a couple hundreds, then a bunch of 32s, a bunch of 34s, 36s. There's just a bunch of fairly close numbers. The cars are that consistent, right? And so what I do, and I'm not going to do it now just because of the time that it takes, I look at especially the fast ones, and if there's something that's odd, I may delete it out. Every once in a while you'll have it'll be a very short time because the driver just didn't accelerate it. It was the first lap and had to get out of it. And there's reasons why the window doesn't work sometimes quite right. So I look and make sure that the segment time is real close to the rest of them. So I know it's a hot segment. I make sure that the top speed and the minimum speed is about the same for all of them, anything that I'm going to use. You see here one that was pretty slow on the top, pretty slow on the minimum speed in the segment, and a little bit off on the time. I might just disable that lap, get rid of it. This one's not bad, obviously, but I get this down to where the bottom third or the best third of the laps, and I come up here and I just start disabling laps until I get down to the laps that are the best third, and I know how many it is, and I'm counting down. I went ahead and did this anyway, right? But we get down to a number where it's about the best third. Down here in the statistics, 2.32 is the average of all of his best data laps, his 6 data laps. The average acceleration rate of the car was 8.91 feet per second squared, and the distance it took for that car to accelerate was 221.3 on the average. Okay, that's the information that we're grabbing, and then I plug that into some other areas, and that's what we're comparing all the different cars to. So I do that with every single car, just to give you an idea. then we also do the same thing, and I just want to show this quickly on. I won't show braking. Braking, we just do the. Well, I probably will show it a little bit, but here's cornering, and so what we do here is basically the same thing. I've got a cornering report, and let's turn on all the laps again, and then I'll go down to the. And again, I've broken up the 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 track into a corner, and let me show you where we did it on this particular day. Here's the corner that I selected. It's this big long turn here, right here, and here is the G forces that was met. Here we are where we pulled the data out and into the report. Here is the what is the most important thing that the series may want to know about things that that were happening out there. Was what was the average G-force that you in your car were performing through that curve above 0.75 Gs. I just don't even start counting it until you get really turned up into the corner. And so there's the average Gs that that John was doing through that corner. So I sort again, and this time I'm really not going to go through it all, but here is the best 6 laps that he did. I scan here, make sure they're all real good, true laps that he was at speed, and I disable a bunch of them, and I end up with an average G-forces at maximum Gs in that corner. A couple other things that are interesting. Here's the maximum G for each of the laps, just whatever the car hit, the maximum. How many feet was the car in this corner? Start thinking about what we're talking about here and the value that you might be able to get out of this, because we're going to give you some tools to do some of these things yourself. The distance you were at that max Gs, the time you were in that corner at max Gs, the GPS, the minimum GPS radius that you drove in that to accomplish that, the average radius that you drove, and the minimum speed in that when you were doing that, just the corner, not for the entire segment, but now the numbers here are just for when you were up to Gs, up 0.75 or above, and 0.75 until you hit below 0.75 Gs. This was your minimum speed and your maximum speed for each of these laps. There's a ton of information here that we're recording, and are going to start to try to give the series to understand things and different drivers, and try to figure out why maybe a car, while being about the same speed on the straightaways and acceleration, is going 0.3 a lap faster. We're trying to understand the cornering in the big picture and how the corner was broke down. It's the same thing with the braking. We're looking at straight line braking. I'm not going to go probably into it, but straight line braking and understanding what that does as well. So we're going through all of these and then reporting all these, and that's that data that you're seeing in some of those screens that we can give you. And this is all being shared, of course, fully with the series and Mazda and everybody else in some reports. So just some interesting stuff of what we are doing, and showing you some of the different things that that is available to us based on the data that you're being shipping in. What I'd like to do now is, for those of you that may want to do a little bit of this on your own, I'm already up against the clock, or are not SMX racers, but maybe you would like to grab some of these tools to do this on your own. Some of this is very, very complex, and it's being adjusted, and we will so you're not going to get this full data set, full thing we're doing here. But I'm going to jump out of John's data, and let me unload the Spec MX-5, switch off those channels, switch off these channels, and then I'm going to turn on some webinar channels. So this is the link that you've probably been shared, where you can go grab these math channels. I'm going to enable all of these math channels, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab John Barnum has been a long time webinar attendee here. We've had him, he's had some data and lots of good ideas for webinar topics. His son has races a Spec Racer Ford. John sent me some data, and what I thought I would do is we would attach some of this exact same thing to John's data, and then walk through it real briefly to kind of close this out for those of you that might want to use this exact same data concepts, data analysis concepts in your own data. I need to load a different. Here is the user profile that is also available to you to download and add yourself. I'm going to load that profile. And the math channels that are available, you'll have the ability to do acceleration reports, braking reports, and corner reports. Let's look real briefly at the same exact track map. It's real important to build your track maps with an acceleration zone. Lots of different ways. Lots of times we've talked about how to do that, but you can come in, right click, unlock these splits, and drag and drop these and make an acceleration zone, and then lock it. Then when you go into the acceleration report, go down to the segment that you have called your acceleration area. And now for JD's runs up the back straightaway, same basic thing that you were just looking at is we have that that time, right, of the acceleration that he did. So I'm going to sort. Here is his Spec Racer Ford times in that same area, from fastest to the worst. I've just sorted by clicking on the header. There's the there's the distance that it took. There is the G's. I didn't do feet per second squared here. I used the G's here just to make it maybe a little bit easier for you guys, but you can change the units at any time. The minimum maximum speed, the GPS accuracy. Again, you want to kind of keep your eye on that because a lot of what we're doing is based on GPS information. So that all of that is there. If you want to see it all, you can see exactly the acceleration rate here. If you need to change that channel right now, I have set that as, if I come in here to the math channels, probably shouldn't have done this, but because I don't know exactly where that's at. Yep, I just did 60 through 100 in this case, right? If you want to change that, you go into the MXL on, put your different values that you might want to in between shift points or the entire straightaway, whatever you want, put 40 to 130, right? Whatever it is that works for you, tweak the math channel in that area, and you will get that gate will be just a little bit different size for you. But this one I hear is 60 to 100 right now. Okay, let's show the brake one because we didn't show it on the other one. Let's go. There's one really good braking zone at Portland, and it's coming off the front straightaway into what they call the festival curves. So here is the braking in G's. You can see the other three braking zones are not nearly as long. They might be, there's other braking zones, but the braking on all of the math in SMX and in here is it's only when the G's get above 0.5 negative G's and quits when you get more than 0.25 lateral G's. So it's as much as I can straight line braking. So here is the straight line braking that this car was done. If we go to the report, go to the braking report, we can go in there and we look at the G-force and we can sort by that. The best he did was 0.91 on lap 5. That was the highest G's that he did. The rest of them are quite a bit lower. I'd like to know what he did differently there, right? If you're comparing new tires versus old tires or brake pads versus other brake pads, here's the distance you were on the brakes, here's the time you were on the brakes, and the speed you pulled in and out of the car. All of this is available to you here with these free math channels. So that was the braking. And one last one, just for just so you can see it, is the cornering. Pick that same corner, didn't change the map at all. So it's this corner here. And if we go into the corner report for him, and again, you have to go down and you have to go to the cornering. You'll get tricked a lot. You'll start to sort by the full lap, and the numbers will look a little bit funny. Always make sure you scroll down to the segment that you're after. It's the most accurate way to do it. And then here you've these free math channels that are available for you to download. Gives you the corner radius that you drove, the time you were at that radius, and the number of feet you were at that, the amount of time, and the average G's of that corner during that peak G-forces around that corner. And you can, if you sorted by that, you can see that he had a peak of 112 early, lap 3, but there's some late laps there that he was 1.11 on average. So tires didn't fall off a ton, and but you can see, well, why up here. And then the one that I found here was interesting, was the number of feet that he drove. Look at the best G's that he had, drove the least number of feet, and then let's sort it by time, in seconds. How fast what was the best he got through that corner was down in here. and you can kind of start to see it was when he had the highest G's, because we colorize these with histograms. You can see this was the best G's that he ran, was the lowest times, was the lowest number of feet, and had the smallest radius. That's teaching you something about maybe to handle how to handle that corner, right? Just some interesting things. These tools are available to you. Download them. Ask me any questions later if you have any trouble getting them up to speed and working. Happy to help. But at that point, I think I'm going to stop on this, and I'm going to jump back to the presentation. And because we're running pretty long, there's no questions there. There's probably a lot of questions in the chat box, but I don't see any questions in the question and answer box, so that's pretty good. So let me bring this back up. Let's see, where did it go? There it is. Let's bring this back up, and let me kind of close this out, and I'll bring back Josh and Justin in just a moment. But as we're kind of closing this one out, those of you who haven't, there's a good number of you, this is your first webinar that you've come to. We do something like this with data analysis and hardware and guests coming in twice a month. And every one of those goes to our AIM Sports YouTube video site. All of them are up there. They're up there within an hour or so after the webinars are done. If you ever want to go back and look at any of the ones that we've done in the past, that's where you would go. We're out the track. Most of you, if you're the SMX guys, I think there's been an event we have couldn't get somebody to. I think just the latest one, but generally speaking, we have an AIM support person there at the track. A tech has been, I know, stops at all of your paddock areas pretty regularly. Justin gets information from you guys if you need them, and we get them over there as fast as we can. So if you see those guys walking around, give them a cold water if it's hot. It's a tough job walking around the paddock area for 3 or 4 days. So, but they're there to help. We're always here to help you. Customer support. If it's not at the track, give us a call. You have my email address. If there's something I can help you with in between, just let me know as well. It's part of what my job is as well. So we're always out there. Customer support's a big thing for AIM. So make sure you give us a chance to help you get the most out of your equipment and your software. We're going to do another one of these. We do them every the first, the second and last Tuesdays of every month. We do this one. The early one in the early part of the month is the evening one. The one that's the other side is a morning or midday one. The one coming up here on the 25th is a midday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. It allows us to have guests from Europe and AIM Italy to join us as well. So. But what we're going to talk about next time is our new, what we're calling our open devices. Sure, they can be used with all of your AIM systems, but we're also we now have them to be they're CAN enabled to be able to connect it to any of the different hardware out there that can accept the CAN language. So we're going to talk all about those and what AIM is doing in that open platform, and we're going to have, I hope, a little hard still a couple weeks out. We're very busy people with lots of track running that we have to do and support, but I think we're going to have Robbie Yeoman and Brick Talley here with me, and we're going to talk about the open devices. So join us if you can, and if not, watch for it to be out on the on YouTube right after we finish up. So if I could bring Justin and Josh back, we're right at the top of the hour. We'll just kind of do a quick closing here, and then we'll call it a day. So hopefully I didn't get a chance to read any of the chats, fellas. We'll start with Justin. Justin, is there anything you kind of saw that was going on there? Is anything else you kind of like to add as we kind of close this one up?
Yeah, so first I want to say thank you to our racers who have been so patient in accepting the data rule, but also been so great at getting the data sent as soon as you could. You've all done a really, really great job. You continue to surprise me every single weekend.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Even at Mid Ohio, we had everybody sending the data like pretty much like immediately, which I was shocked but surprised and really happy and again proud. I'm a very proud person. I'm very proud to see you guys.
Let me add to that just for a minute. I know racers, you got a lot going on, and especially I am always so pleased. The motor's blown up or you've crashed out, somebody's taking you out, and the data still is showing up before 30 minutes. And I know that's extremely hard to do when pressures are high and tempers are high. So I really, really appreciate that. We're just here there is some data there, and if I can find something to help you diagnose the problem, I'm always happy to help. I especially look for those data files as well. So thanks to all of you that do those even on the worst of times. So Justin, continue on. Thank you.
And thanks again, Roger. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, so the one question I could find that I don't think's been answered yet is how do you remove draft from effects?
Well, you've seen when I was looking at the data there is an intake air temperature is the best way that I have. I don't have the video, right? I can look back into the data, but of course, they're not always showing every car out there, obviously. So there's a couple ways. The very, very quick way that I can do it is look at the intake air temperature. And if all of a sudden I see a car that has 4 or 5 miles an hour better speed, I immediately go to the intake air temperature, and that without fail will show me if there's a draft, number one. And then we have a second way that if it's down the road, I have a little bit more time, a couple days afterwards, we have a tool that I've showed before in the previous webinar that we did, where we can bring up the GPS position of the cars, and it's in real time, thousandths of a second location on the track. And if I see a car that we're really concerned about, I start to put the cars around it and start to understand what the draft was. And then, of course, we get fed the video with some racers that are really concerned about it. Maybe they share the video. So I have a couple of the big ways with data only is intake air temperature just shoots up. When you're in a draft, it's 15, 18 degrees up immediately. And then also the GPS information. But I can see the speed traces jump up. And there's only two things that make that happen. There's an additional boost of horsepower, or there's an aerodynamic effect. So depending on if it happens at the top end, especially if it happens at 40, 45 miles an hour, I can see when bump drafts happen, the speed just jumps up on the one car. I find out who was behind him. I look at the GPS information, and that guy's speed drops down. And oh, well, okay, there's a huge bump draft there, right? So we can see all that. Takes a little bit of time, but the intake air temperature is the biggest one. Thanks for the question.
Cool.
Okay, perfect.
Well, and that really goes to show how much draft effects stand out. I know, Roger, you said some other things like VIR makes some of this difficult from uphill, downhill acceleration and deceleration. You know, that it really shows how much we're splitting hairs here to make sure that the data from all cars is very much in this window when we're scrutinizing it. That we can tell acceleration uphill, like the Glen turn one to the bus stop. We know it's uphill. Even if you just looked at the acceleration trace data from the time and distance portion and didn't show us what track, we go, well, that seems a little off.
Yep.
You know, it seems a little slow compared to what we normally see at a place like, you know, after start finish at Road America, that's slightly downhill kind of thing. Exactly. So, no, Roger.
But when I'm able to stack the top 5 right on top of each other, and everybody's to jump up all of a sudden when there's this huge draft, we have a better understanding that you may think that we can, but how do we resolve that, right? Sometimes you get 2 cars together side by side, and the third car's back about 70, 80 feet back. The draft, I've seen as much as 18 miles per hour on big, tall tracks, right, where you're long back straightaway, and the draft on these cars is amazing if you hit it right. So
it works really good. Well, Roger, I'll mirror what Justin said. You know, the partnership with AIM and all that you do for us through AIM and that has been great, all the way from MX-5 Cup through SMX and Spec Miata. What AIM does for the grassroots community is certainly stellar, and that's why we choose to partner with you guys. We have very shared goals when it comes to supporting customers, so we appreciate it.
Well, I thank everybody for coming. I thank the 2 of you for helping put this all together. It's been a good time, and very enjoyable to do all of this, to help out, give back a little bit to the motorsports thing that I love as much as I do as well. All of the racers out there, everybody's been pretty darn good about it, and I do appreciate that. Thank you everybody for coming. We did run a little long. I told you we probably would. When I get to chatting about stuff like this, this is the cool part. So, but I appreciate it. If you put a question into the chat box or to the question and answer we didn't get to, we will look at that, and we will try to work between us with all of the Mazda folks and myself and get an answer to you in an email. So we will go for that. Thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it. Join us in a couple of weeks for our next one on the open devices, and we will see you the next time, or I will be seeing a lot of the people's names I saw in here electronically sitting at my desk here looking at data from Road America here shortly. So thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
guys. See ya. Thanks, Roger.